Have you ever done everything right and still watched her pull away? You texted at the right time, you were kind, you were honest, you showed up, and somehow, the more effort you put in, the colder things got. She stopped responding the way she used to. That warmth she had at the beginning, it just disappeared. And you're sitting there wondering what you did wrong because you did everything you were supposed to do. That feeling, that confusion, that quiet ache of trying so hard and still losing, I know it. And so do millions of men who will never understand why it keeps happening. I'm your host, and this is The Gentle Mind, where we uncover the real psychology that creates desire. Not manipulation, not games, but the deep, honest truth about how attraction actually works. And I'll warn you now, the final secret on this list is the most powerful one. Almost no one uses it correctly. But the men who do, they don't chase anymore. They don't wonder. They become the kind of man a woman thinks about when she's not with him. Let's get into it. Here's the first thing you need to hear, and I need you to really let this land. What happened to you, the confusion, the rejection, the connection that faded, it was never about your worth as a man. It was a sequencing error. You were doing the right things in the wrong order for the wrong reasons at the wrong time. Nobody ever sat you down and taught you how female attraction actually operates beneath the surface. Not your father, not your friends, not school, nobody. So you did what any logical person does. You treated attraction like a transaction. You gave effort, you expected warmth in return. You gave honesty, you expected closeness. You gave attention, you expected her to value it. And when it didn't work, you gave more, because that's what decent men do. They try harder. But here's the truth that changes everything. Female attraction is not logical. It's not a ledger. It doesn't reward the most effort or the most availability. It responds to something else entirely, something deeper, older, more primal. It responds to feeling, to energy, to subconscious signals that bypass her rational mind completely. Evolutionary psychologists have studied this for decades. Women are wired to detect signals of strength, security, and selectivity. Not because they're shallow, but because those signals kept them and their children safe for hundreds of thousands of years. Her brain is running deep pattern recognition every time she's around you. And it's not asking, is he nice? It's asking, at a level she can't even articulate, is he the kind of man I can trust, admire, and feel safe enough to open up to? Once you understand that, everything shifts. You stop trying to convince her. You start becoming someone her subconscious already recognizes as different. These 5 secrets aren't tricks. They're not manipulation tactics. They're real psychological levers, understood by very few men, that activate genuine, lasting attraction. Use them with respect. Use them with intention. And everything changes. The first one is masculine presence. This has nothing to do with how you look, how tall you are, or how much money you make. Presence is the energy you carry when you walk into a room. It's the quality of your stillness. It's whether you seem like a man who is grounded in himself or a man who is constantly seeking approval from the people around him. Women feel this immediately, before you say a word, before you make a move. There's a signal that comes from a man who is fully at ease in his own skin, who doesn't need the conversation to go a certain way to feel okay about himself. That signal is felt, not heard. Think about the last time you were on a date and you were just a little too eager for her to like you. You laughed a little too fast. You agreed a little too quickly. You were slightly leaning in, literally and figuratively, waiting for her approval. That energy, even when invisible to you, is loudly visible to her. Now think about a version of you that had somewhere else to be. a full life, a purpose he was building. A man who genuinely enjoyed her company, but didn't need it to feel complete. That man doesn't chase, he draws. Presence is the foundation. Without it, nothing else on this list works the way it should. Be the oak, not the weather vane. The second secret is emotional challenge. This one makes men uncomfortable at first because we're taught that the way to win someone over is to be agreeable, warm, and consistently positive. And yes, warmth matters. But without challenge, warmth becomes invisible. Here's the psychology. When everything is easy, when every opinion is validated, when every joke lands perfectly, the brain stops paying attention. There's no novelty, no friction, no reason to stay engaged. But introduce a gentle, playful challenge. A teasing observation, a moment where you don't immediately agree, a question that makes her think, and suddenly she's alert. She's curious. She's leaning in. This is polarity. The slight tension between two people who aren't perfectly aligned, it creates electricity. Think about the conversations you remember most. They weren't the smooth, easy ones. They were the ones where someone pushed back a little, where you had to work to make your point, where there was a little heat. Next time she says something you mildly disagree with, don't fold. Hold your ground with a smile. Say, I actually don't see it that way, girl, and here's why. Watch what happens to the energy in the room. Don't be the man who agrees with everything. Be the man worth disagreeing with. The third secret is selective attention. This is where most men completely misunderstand value. They believe that giving constant attention, always available, always responding, always present, shows how much they care, and it does. But it also destroys something critical: scarcity. When your attention is everywhere, it's worth nothing. When your attention is selective, when she can feel that you have a full life, real priorities, and genuine interest beyond her, your attention becomes something to be earned, something she wants more of. Evolutionary psychology again. We are wired to value things that are rare. A man who makes himself completely available the moment a woman appears is subconsciously signaling one thing. He has nothing more important in his life than her approval. That might feel romantic. It's actually repelling. Have your own world, your own mission, your own friendships, goals, and passions. Let her be a beautiful part of your life, not the entire reason for it. When you do give her your attention, it lands differently because she knows it means something. You are the prize being offered, not the one doing the offering. If this is making sense so far, go ahead and hit subscribe and join the Gentle Mind community. It genuinely helps more men learn the things they were never taught. We're building something real here. The fourth secret is intentional listening. This one is underestimated, severely. Most men think listening means staying quiet while someone else talks. But intentional listening is something completely different. It's the act of truly absorbing what she says, the details, the feelings, the small things she mentions in passing, and reflecting them back days later. She mentions offhand that her younger sister has been struggling. 2 days later, you ask how her sister is doing. She tells you about a restaurant she loved as a child. You remember it. She references a feeling she had during a difficult time. You bring it up later, not to be impressive, but because you were genuinely paying attention. That level of attentiveness does something profound to a woman's nervous system. It tells her, at a level far deeper than words, you are seen. Not just heard. Seen. And being truly seen by someone, not just tolerated, not just liked, but genuinely witnessed, is one of the deepest human needs there is. Most men are waiting for their turn to speak. The rare man is actually listening. That man becomes unforgettable. Don't just hear her, see her. The fifth secret is calibrated vulnerability. Here is a line most men have had to walk blindly their entire lives. The line between being emotionally available and being emotionally overwhelming. Between openness and oversharing. Between depth and desperation. Because we were told, especially in recent years, that women want men who are open, who can express their feelings, who aren't afraid to be real. And that's true. But there's a version of vulnerability that creates deep connection, and a version that creates discomfort and distance. The version that creates connection is measured. It's confident. It's a man who can share something real, a fear, a regret, a moment of uncertainty, without falling apart, without needing her to rescue him, without making her feel responsible for managing his emotional world. The version that repels is the one where vulnerability arrives too early, too intensely, or without the emotional stability to hold it, where it feels less like depth and more like a weight being transferred. Share real things, let her in, but hold your own weight while you do it. The most attractive vulnerability is the kind that says, I trust you enough to show you this, and I'm strong enough that I don't need you to fix it. Be open, not unraveled. The sixth secret is gradual physical touch. Physical connection is one of the most powerful communication channels available to two human beings. And most men either move too fast, which triggers discomfort and defense, or they hold back entirely, which creates distance and ambiguity. The science here is clear. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, is released through light, appropriate, respectful physical contact. A brief touch on the arm during conversation. A hand extended to help her through a crowd. A moment of closeness that isn't demanding anything. These small touches, when well-timed and respectful, do something profound. They begin to wire her nervous system to associate being near you with safety and warmth. Not pressure, not agenda. Just the quiet signal of a man who is comfortable with connection. The key word is gradual. Each moment of physical contact should be slightly more intimate than the last, with her comfort always leading the way. A man who is attuned to this, who reads the signals, who never pushes, who lets closeness build naturally, is a man who feels safe to open up to. Touch is a language. Learn to speak it slowly. And now the seventh. The one I told you about at the beginning. The one almost no one gets right. Controlled unpredictability. Here is what neuroscience tells us about the brain and reward. The dopamine system, the one responsible for motivation, anticipation, and craving, is activated most powerfully not by consistent reward, but by unpredictable reward. The brain doesn't light up for what it can predict. It lights up for what surprises it. This is the same reason people find it hard to put down their phones, why certain conversations become obsessive, why you think about the person who's hardest to read far more than the person who's completely transparent. A man who is entirely predictable, who responds the same way every time, whose mood is constant, whose behavior is perfectly readable, provides no dopamine loop. He's safe. But safety, without mystery, doesn't generate longing. Controlled unpredictability is not hot and cold behavior. It's not emotional withdrawal or manipulation. It's the art of being genuinely layered, of having dimensions she hasn't fully explored yet, of sometimes responding in an unexpected way, a serious moment, followed by surprising lightness. A predictable evening that ends with something genuinely different. Is the difference between a book she can skim and a book she can't put down. Let her feel like she's still discovering you, because a man in full is never fully known. Be fascinating, not frustrating. There is a line. Stay on the right side of it. And now let me bring all of this together for you. Because here's what's really happening when you apply these 5 secrets. You are not manipulating anyone. You are not running a script designed to trick a woman into feeling something she doesn't genuinely feel. You are removing the subconscious friction that was blocking genuine attraction from forming. You are becoming the version of yourself that already existed. Just unpolished, untrained, unaware of the signals you were sending. That man who has real presence, who listens deeply, who holds his own ground, who doesn't dissolve into someone else's expectations, who can be vulnerable without being fragile, who understands that physical closeness is built slowly, who remains always just a little more interesting than she can fully figure out. That man doesn't need tactics. He is the tactic. And here's what I want you to hold on to as you close this video. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to reinvent who you are. You don't need to become someone unrecognizable or cold or calculated. You just need strategy. You need to understand how attraction actually works. Beneath the surface, in the parts of the brain that don't respond to logic or effort or niceness. Real tools, not tricks. Used with respect, with intention, with genuine care for the woman you're with. Because the man who understands this doesn't chase. He doesn't wonder. He doesn't perform. He simply becomes, and then he lets the right people find their way to him. You were never broken. You were just untaught. And now you know. If you're ready to stop chasing and start becoming the man women genuinely desire, subscribe to The Gentle Mind right now. Turn on notifications because the next video will shift your reality again. We're just getting started.